What's up everybody, Noble Comics here, and I want to talk about GAG characters. We all love and hate GAG characters, but there's been plenty of them over the years in both comic, anime, manga, stuff like that. But I want to talk about some in particular and why they can pose a problem for the fan base, for power scaling, stuff like that. And I want to point out a few. Obviously the big one is Saitama. Saitama's been all over my channel lately, and usually not in a favorable light. But Saitama is one of the most popular and most prominent GAG characters, and he's probably one of the ones that is done best. But I don't want to talk about just him. I also want to talk about Deadpool, Batman, and characters like Bugs Bunny. But first of all, what is a GAG character, right? A GAG character is a character that is not meant to be taken seriously. They're meant to be sort of outrageous and not adhere to the typical rules of whatever world or universe that they inhabit. For this reason, whenever taken literally, they seem to be nigh unstoppable, unkillable, things like that. Bugs Bunny is a great example. In the power scaling world, you call a character like him, you say they have Toon Force. But that's pretty much what he is, where this bunny can be shot in the face and crushed and everything like that, but he never dies. To where if you were literally scaling that against someone like Superman, it's like, whoa, Bugs Bunny can like warp reality and survive all this insane stuff, and he's scaled quite high. When really, he's just meant to be a funny character, right? Not meant to be taken seriously. But some of these other characters that I named kind of tread the line, where they're obviously taken to an extreme or sort of a caricature of a typical character, yet they also inhabit a universe where they are taken seriously, or somewhat seriously. Batman is a good example of this, where he has sort of morphed over the years, depending on the writer really, into GAG character status, I would say, and the fan base is typically there. They're definitely there whenever you interact with anybody, because a simple way to do it is look at any Batman fight that says with prep time and look at the responses. It's ridiculous the things that people think Batman can do, because you could say like Batman versus Galactus, but he has 15 minutes of prep time. And there'll be people there who are like, oh, Batman with prep time's unstoppable. Batman with prep time's unstoppable. He could do this, that, and this. Which is like, that's the whole basis for the Superman versus Batman debate, right? Is that, well, with prep time, Batman can do anything. He can kill anybody. When obviously, he does not win that fight. And I made a video on that. And so, in my mind, that makes him sort of a GAG character, where he can do anything and beat anybody, whatever, as long as you give him 5 seconds of prep time, he can do anything. Even though the character typically is not shown like that. I think Scott Snyder really propelled him into that, or at least he really liked that aspect of him and made him a very overpowered Batman during his writing. But Batman typically is not like that, obviously, right? He's a street-level character who does have the means to do more powerful things, and he's obviously very impressive. But that aspect of him is so blown out of proportion. It's like a caricature of a real character, yet he exists in a serious universe. Again, same thing with Deadpool. And this, I remember this, okay? Because I've been a comic fan forever. But people who saw Deadpool in 2016, and that's the first time that they've ever, like, interacted with superhero medium, it's the first time they've ever heard of Deadpool, whatever, they went crazy. And these are the people who, like, they've watched one movie, so now they're a fan. Now they can tell you about comics. They've watched one movie, right? They know everything. So, oh yeah, did you know that Deadpool actually da-da-da? It's like, dude, I've been reading this stuff forever. So don't try and educate me on, like, what Deadpool can and can't do. I know already. The problem is that you don't know. And that whole fan base of people who don't know caused the problem. Same thing with kind of like with Batman. They've read one Batman comic or one thing, and they think they know the full character. But with Deadpool, it's particularly bad, because it looked like this. It looked like, you know, Deadpool versus Thor, and then there'd be a swarm of people who will say like, well, actually Deadpool wins because Deadpool can't die. Didn't you know that Deadpool can't die? He has a healing factor. That means he can't die. And if you can't die, you can't lose. Which is just the most, like, brain dead, low IQ, low knowledge take that I've ever heard. And I want to say that some of my friends were kind of like this. My friends were not comic book people. So, you know, all this stuff was new to them. Like, I remember whenever they first like saw Thanos, they were so hyped on Thanos and everything like that, which is all cool to see, but it's like it's not their world. They don't inhabit it, so the opinions and conclusions they may draw will be misguided. Like a lot of people who saw Deadpool suddenly think that he's the funniest person ever, and oh, he can't die, and he's so goofy, and he's so weird. He says, "Look at my balls," and stuff like that. But obviously, anybody who knows anything about comics knows Deadpool is not, in fact, like the most powerful being in the Marvel Universe. There's like infinite people who could beat him, and not just like Thor or the Hulk or Odin or somebody who can like wipe him from existence, but like Captain America could beat Deadpool. And yes, he has a healing factor. He's very difficult to kill, but you don't have to kill somebody to beat somebody, right? That's kind of one of the main things about being a superhero, is that you don't actually have to kill people a lot of the time in order to subdue them or defeat them. Actually, a pretty big theme. And so that was the Deadpool crowd, who came and went, and they were annoying while they were here, but they went after a little bit. But then the big one showed up. Saitama. One Punch Man. My gosh. And I would like to say that it was a similar thing where, like, in the early days it was super high, but it sort of died down. But it really hasn't. It really has not. The early day opinion of Saitama is the exact same as the modern day opinion of Saitama, which is insane because he's gotten so much more powerful since the early days. But Saitama, right, this character, One Punch Man, he can defeat anything in one punch. He's the most powerful person in his anime manga universe. It's like a parody of a superhero comic, right? A parody of a powerful anime protagonist. And all this is very clear. Because again, like, his workout regimen that got him to be as powerful as he is was pretty basic. It was like 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, 100 squats, and then a 10K run every day. Like, it's pretty easy. And yet he becomes this god among men, right? That's so insanely powerful. Nothing can ever hurt him. He's can one-shot anything. He's just completely ridiculous. But like I said, this is one that's done extremely well, because despite all of his power, the character himself is, you know, he's very lazy, he's very depressed and bored, and so he's not like just saving the universe one punch at a time. He's kind of not that engaged at the start, and he's kind of looking for something that can give him a challenge, which made for like a very entertaining and interesting read. Like I said, done very well. The problem, I think, comes from the fact that the rest of the universe does take him seriously. The rest of the universe is pretty serious. There's not a lot of other gag type characters. There's other funny characters, right? But there's nobody else quite like him. So everybody else who's fighting, they're fighting real enemies, and they're having like real struggles, and power scaling is legitimate between them. But then One Punch Man's here, and he's just above everything else and kind of throws it off. And I feel that this lessens a little bit as it goes on. Like with the Garo fight, I feel like that idea was minimized a bit, just because of the fact that Garo was at least going toe-to-toe with Saitama. He wasn't beating him in one punch or anything like that. They treated him closer to an actual anime protagonist, though obviously he still was, you know, untouched during that entire fight, and did end up easily winning. But that, again, that is sort of the problem that we encounter, is these characters are cool and entertaining and funny, and they inhabit this very specific caricature of whatever property they're trying to mimic or make fun of or anything like that. Yet, they're treated as if they are a real character. Sometimes treated that way in the actual story, but always treated that way by the fan base. And so with One Punch Man, you have two groups of people. You have people who treat him as a gag character only, and then there's people who treat him as a real character. And so whenever I make videos like, could One Punch Man beat Jiren, for example, I'm saying, let's look at what One Punch Man has done so far. Let's look at his feats of strength and his displays of power. How does that match up to Jiren's strength and power? So theoretically, if they were to fight, who would win? You know, it's very, I'm treating him like he's a real character. And the comments are usually full of people who say something like, he beats anybody. One Punch Man, that's the whole point of the character. That's the whole point of the character. Didn't you know that that's the whole point of the character, is that he's more powerful than anybody? And it's like, yes, obviously, I get that that's the point of the character. He's more powerful than anyone. He can beat anybody. But he's not treated that in his own comic all the time, right? Because you could say the same thing. You could say that Goku's a gag character. Don't you know that the whole point of Goku is that he gets more powerful than his opponent? And when you say the whole point, right, then you're looking at, like, what is the theme or pattern when it comes to these engagements? And for One Punch Man, it's that he gets battered around a little bit, does 0 damage to him, he one-shots his opponent. With Goku, you could say that he gets battered around a little bit, it looks like he's going to lose, he screams, he gets a new form, and he beats his opponent. So, like Goku versus Saitama, you could say, well, the whole point of Saitama's character is that he can one-shot anybody, he can beat anybody, he's indestructible, da-da-da-da-da. But I could easily just say, well, the whole point of Goku's character is that he's more powerful than anybody, and he gets more powerful than his opponent, who's usually more powerful than him, and he'll get a new form, and he'll win. You know, you can look at it both ways. The difference, of course, is that Saitama was created in mind to be a gag character, whereas Goku was not. That is just the pattern that his character has gone through throughout the years when it comes to his different encounters. So the problem really does come down to, how do we want to treat these characters? Do we want to treat them as legitimate, or do we want to treat them as a joke? And it's easy for people like Bugs Bunny. If you said, like, could Bugs Bunny beat Superman? Like, that's funny. It's obviously not serious. We're not treating these characters as if they existed in the same universe, because they don't. The rules are totally different, and whatever rules are there seem to get broken, right? So it's not really a one-to-one. But these characters that more walk the line, like Deadpool to a degree, mostly like Saitama, are more difficult, because they break the rules of the universe by being this powerful, but they adhere to their own rules of being the most powerful and, like, one-punching stuff. But then also, not everything does get one-punched, and we want to treat him more seriously sometimes, and so it gets kind of cloudy. And so some fans only see him as gag character. He's a joke, he can do anything. Some characters want to see him as a real character. And I don't think there really is one clear solution or one clear way of looking at these things and these different characters, because they're not the same, right? Like, One Punch Man is not the same as Superman or Goku or these more legitimate, quote-unquote, serious characters, as in they're supposed to be, to a degree, believable and consistent, which I know is kind of ironic given these two characters, but that's at least the idea, versus the idea from the offset is for this person to not be serious. And because of that, you only get confusion, you only get some divisiveness whenever you try to talk about them in the same breath as any other character. So when you try and say, like, Saitama versus Goku, that it's from its framework, you're going to get two camps of people who fundamentally disagree and could never agree on a conclusion. Because if you look at logically by feats, Goku obviously stomps Saitama. If you ignore all of that and just say, well, the whole point of the character is that he's a joke, well, then there's no convincing you, and obviously you think that Saitama beats anybody. So the real question is, could Saitama beat Bugs Bunny? I'm joking. Or am I? But at the end of the day, right, it's not easy. Power scaling doesn't really work the way it's supposed to in these scenarios, and you can't really form a logical conclusion on power, because the creator of the property and a lot of the fan base throw logic out the window from the offset, right? That's the whole point. So is it wrong for people like me and others to treat him as a legitimate character, even though at times he is treated as a legitimate character in the manga? Is that right for me to do? Is it wrong for me to try and scale against real characters like Goku or Superman? Or should he just be left alone to be some joke character in a universe nobody ever talks about? I really don't know. Let me know what you guys think about these characters in general. How should they be treated by the power scaling community, by just the fan base in general? Let me know in the comments down below, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.